Talking with Tasha, talking with Tasha. It's episode 72 of Talking with Tasha. Hello, welcome back to Talking with Tasha. Happy Thanksgiving. This is a special Thanksgiving episode of Talking with Tasha. For those of you that don't know, November is National Adoption Month to raise awareness about the thousands of children in foster care systems awaiting permanent families and to celebrate the families who have adopted. Also, this coming out on Thanksgiving, people get together with their families. Family dynamics are always dynamic. Literally, I just said it. But families can be messy. We all know that. We love them, but they can be messy. With all that being said, my very wonderful friend Jenifer Wollman was willing to share her story of adoption. She was adopted, raised by a great family. When she first got pregnant in her 20s, she gave that child up for adoption. And then her second husband adopts her second child. That was actually from her first marriage. That's all kind of confusing. It all gets explained in this episode, in this chat with Jenifer. But anyway, her life has been touched by adoption in just about every way that it can be. We talk about why she chose the route for adoption, what it was like being adopted, how she went about finding her family. We cry, we laugh. I just think it's a really good episode, and I thank her for being willing to share this, because sometimes stories like this get swept under the rug, or, you know, skeletons in the closet type of family secrets or whatever. But I really love that she was open and honest. And even though I was not adopted, I think there's still relatable things in the story because, like I said, everybody's got family stuff. Like, it does not matter rich, poor, what ethnicity you are, adopted or not adopted. We all got stuff with our family, right? But anyway, I hope you enjoy this episode. I hope you enjoy Thanksgiving. I hope you enjoy your family, whatever that word means to you. I understand it can be hard with family, but again, make the best of it, whatever family means to you. I hope you have a great Thanksgiving. And I'm thankful for all of you listening. And I'm thankful for Jenifer sharing her story. And let's get to it. Welcome, Jenifer, to Talking with Tasha.
Thanks for having me this morning.
The main reason, I mean, I'm also just like your friend, but the other reason I had you on the show was, gosh, I think, was it last January during Burger Battle when you said you had found out some things about your birth dad, and you were kind of like telling us this whole story, and I was like, is this real? Like, it was just such a wild story. Like, you can't write this stuff, you know? So, and I just thought your whole, honestly, like, your life story is very interesting to me. You are adopted. And what reminded me of all this was, because is November adoption month, or was it October?
Yeah. November. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Which
And
interestingly enough is also my birthday.
oh, okay. Yeah. So you had a very poignant post about how, you know, you were adopted, you gave a kid up for adoption, like just this whole sort of, I don't know, it was just very nice. And I was like, oh, Jenifer, like, I just love you.
Oh. Aw, thank you. Oh, my heart.
So, yeah, I guess we'll start from the start. You were adopted. And so how old were you? Were you a baby, like infant,
Yeah.
or okay.
I was a baby.
So
Yeah.
was it a something where your birth mom like knew your parents, or was it totally kind of random, or
Yeah.
did your adoptive parents like literally pick you up from the hospital, or were you, how did that all work, I guess?
Yeah. So, honestly, my parents, they had a baby boy, and then a few years later they had another baby boy. And then a couple years after their second boy was born, their first boy died. He had a brain tumor, and so they lost a child. And I just recently actually discovered in the last few weeks that my parents, my adopted parents, my parents, they wanted to be foster parents, and so they applied to be foster parents and were approved for that. And then they wanted to adopt. And so when I was born, they went through the foster process because they actually started the foster process in Sioux Falls where they lived. And then they moved up north to the farm during that time for a couple years. And so when they got approved to be foster parents at the farm. And so when I was born, they placed me into their foster care, and the paperwork was finalized and signed like literally the day before their third boy, my younger brother, was born.
Oh, wow.
And that's all stuff I found out when I went through birth records, and then just more recently when I've been going through stuff on the farm house, lots of documentation and records and stuff. My birth mother was really young, and my birth father, who he'd mentioned he was a bit of a scoundrel.
Yeah, we'll get to
um,
that. That's a fun story.
yeah. She was young and certainly I'm sure wasn't prepared to care for a child, and so she placed me into the foster care with Lutheran Social Services, and that just happened to match up with my parents. And so yeah, so they adopted me and moved me into their farm home. My mom says that, she has said that they weren't ready for me. I mean, obviously, because she was pregnant during this whole, period of time and didn't really know when they'd got everything started or when I was placed into foster care, and so yeah, it was kind of a surprise to them, but she says they weren't ready for me. Like, I had to sleep in a drawer for a little while, and, they didn't really have car seats back then, so it was just kind of an interesting time, so
Yeah.
yeah.
So he's your younger brother, but you both kind of like entered the house at the same time, kind of like it
Yeah, I
was,
mean,
yeah.
kind of. I was born in November, and at that time, my mom must have been a couple months pregnant, and they just didn't know, because as they were going through the foster process that I'm sure she found out, right? And
Right.
so they had me in November, like, they brought me home in November when I was just born, and then, went through the whole foster paperwork and visits and stuff like that. And then, I think they just decided to adopt, and maybe they started that process, before they even knew that my mom was pregnant, because and then they were like, "Well, we can't stop this process, right? Thank
Right, right.
goodness." So, yeah, so they finalized all of the paperwork for, I guess maybe I said foster, for adoption. I think they finalized all that paperwork, and then the next day after all the paperwork was signed and, stamped and sealed and delivered, my younger brother was born, so, yeah, so I have an older brother and a younger brother, so.
Gotcha. Did you grow up always knowing you were adopted? Like, were they
Mhm,
just very open about that, or was it like some big
mhm.
revelation you had or anything?
I feel like I've always known. I also feel like, though, like, maybe they told me when I was, I don't know, somewhere between the ages of 5 and 10. I don't really honestly remember. I just feel like I've always known. I do remember, though, feel like looking different from my brothers. Like, a lot of people said I looked like my mom because my mom had dark hair, and but my brothers were both basically blonde and fair-skinned, and I went, to school when I like in 5th, 6th, 7th grade, when the grade schools merged and we went to school with everybody. A lot of people who knew both of my brothers, or especially my older brother, just made comments about how I don't look anything like them and I look so different. And I think at that time I'd known, obviously, that I was adopted, so I was able to explain that. But I remember being old enough, though, to kind of go through a phase maybe where I felt like I wasn't really their kid just because I wasn't a blood relative. I mean, they were still my mom and dad, and I didn't rebel or anything like that. I probably went through, like, I don't know, a week of being like, identity crisis,
Right, right.
So it wasn't, but I've never had any issues or trouble or thoughts about it, I guess. It was always just normal. Like, I never felt out of place. I mean, the only reason I felt really out of place is because people would say I don't look anything like my brothers, right? But
Yeah.
but you don't have to look like your siblings. I mean,
Right.
I've got evidence of that in my family, and my birth daughters. So, but anyway, yeah, so I feel like I've always known, and it's never
Okay.
been an issue. And I never really had any desire to look for my birth family because I always was. I had a happy home. I had a great home, and my parents gave us everything they could. And I grew up on a farm, and it was great. So the only thing I really always kind of thought was, I wonder what my health and medical history is. Every time you go to the doctor, you're like, "What's your family history?" "I don't know, I was adopted." So for decades, I didn't know about that, so.
Yeah. So what was the, because you obviously you did find out things about your birth family. So what was the impetus or the motivator
Uh-huh,
for doing that? Or
uh-huh.
were your and I know they're your parents, but I'm going to say adoptive and birth
Yeah,
just to like keep it clear. Were your adoptive parents always cool with you knowing stuff, or was it an open adoption? Like, did or how did that happen, I guess?
No, it was sealed, and it was a long time ago, and times were different. In the last couple decades, open adoptions have certainly been a bigger thing to keep those families kind of in touch. But my parents grew up in a time where a lot of stuff was just hush hush. I mean, their parents were the silent generation, and they themselves were boomers. So it was sealed. Yeah, they were sealed records, and honestly, I never wanted to make my parents feel like they weren't good enough. So I never really I mean, I openly said I didn't have any desire to find him. I mean, deep down inside, maybe a little bit, because honestly, I always wondered who I looked like, and because you see families that really look alike, and I always kind of wondered who I looked like in my health history. But openly, I just never really remember talking about it being an issue, and so I didn't want I'm sorry, I didn't want to make my parents feel bad by yeah by searching for other parents and making them feel like they weren't good enough or and that really, after my dad passed away, kind of unexpectedly my first year of pharmacy school, um, it was during that time that I kinda decided I wanted to find my birth family, and I feel kinda bad because I didn't share that with my mom before she passed, and I mean, a little part of me feels bad, but not really because I kinda thought, "She's not gonna wanna hear it, I don't wanna hurt her feelings, she's really vulnerable, she's lost people in her life, and I don't want her to think that she's gonna lose me or that she's not good enough because she had those fears, everybody
Mhm.
has those fears, right? So, I never actually told her that I was gonna do a search for my birth parents. And it's my journey too, anyway, like, I
Right.
kind of had friends that I would talk with this about, and they're like, "It's your journey, Jen. It's something private and that's close to you, and you can share when you wanna share, but you aren't obligated to tell anybody that you're going on this journey." So, I have
And
a
I
lot
think
of
that makes sense, like, the death of a parent. I mean, I'm not adopted, but I have lost a
uh-huh,
parent, and you do just sort of a lot of stuff comes up when stuff like that happens, so I totally
uh-huh,
get where that would make you be like, "But who are these other people out there that
uh-huh.
might hold the key to something?" I don't know, like, you know
Yeah,
what I mean? Yeah, it's
yeah,
just yeah.
yep, yep,
So, I understand that to a certain degree, but yeah.
yeah,
But, okay, so how did you find them? Or
yeah.
were they wanting to be found, I guess,
Yeah.
is kind of the
Yeah.
question too?
So honestly, okay, so I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit because I can't tell that story without telling you this one first.
Okay,
So
do it.
I something that I haven't really shared with a lot of people. So this is gonna be a big reveal.
Well, and I
um
do appreciate, like you said, this is your story and you can keep it private, but I do appreciate you being willing to share it. I think it's a very interesting story and
yeah,
it is relatable, and family dynamics in any way are
yeah,
always complicated and we all have
yeah.
stuff. But like I just
Yeah.
think your story is very interesting, so I'm glad you're
Aw,
willing to
I
share it.
really appreciate that too. Thank you. I think it's interesting too because I've got adoption all around me, and I did just post everything on Facebook, so I guess it's out there.
Right, right.
So when I was in my 20s and dating this guy I went to school with and in college, I got pregnant and wasn't ready to have a baby or care for a baby and didn't I mean, I was just a lost 20-year-old soul. I tell you what, it was awful. But it was a lot of fun. But anyway, so it was just such a misguided time in my life. It was so misguided. I wish that I could go back and give myself advice. But at any rate, so I got pregnant and I wasn't ready to have a baby and we weren't ready to care for a child. And honestly, I drew upon my experience of having been an adopted child and just I felt really comfortable with the decision and I felt like this worked out great for me. My parents were amazing and I had a great childhood and grew up having a great life, and I just thought, "I want that for m my baby," because I was in no position to be able to give that to her. I mean, I was broke and kinda struggling through college and didn't have any career plans or any future, and it just wasn't the right time, and I wanted to make sure she was provided for. So, we actually got to pick the birth family or I'm sorry, the adoptive family. And we went through Lutheran Social Services and we got to pick the adoptive family. We watched videos and looked at scrapbooks and stuff like that. And so we actually picked a family that already had a little girl because I always wanted a sister, and so I wanted my daughter to have a sister. So we chose that family. We met, we placed our daughter into their care. And it was beautiful and sad. I mean, it was really beautiful because they were so appreciative. Like they were so thankful. They just felt so blessed. They just it was just a miracle for them because they weren't able to have children. And I kind of felt like that's probably what my parents felt like too. They wanted a daughter. They'd had two sons and lost one and wanted a little girl. And I think they would have taken any healthy baby and they were just, really happy to get a daughter. And so I kind of projected that onto this situation and felt like it was the right thing to do.
Was
So
the daughter they already had, was she adopted too, or
yes. Yep.
okay, okay.
She was adopted. So that worked out really well, and then actually, I got married and lived my life and blah, blah, blah. Well, anyway, so fast forward to 2018 time frame, and I had a daughter during that time who's my daughter now that I brag about all the time. And she was like, let's see, 20 she was 14, 13, 14 at the time. And I just kind of felt this I was moved to do a search for my birth daughter, and I don't know why it took me so long. I mean, but it was 2018 and I just felt really moved. I felt this really powerful motivation to start searching for my birth daughter. So I actually contacted Lutheran Social Services and found out information on what I needed to do to get that process started. They connected me with a woman who honestly, like, this was so crazy. They connected me with a woman who did searches like this and had done it for decades, and it actually turned out to be the same woman who helped me place our daughter into adoption the first time around.
Oh, wow.
So I just was like, this is meant to be. This is why this is pulling me in this direction. And so she helped me find my birth daughter. Like we communicated a lot about things and they kind of prep you for, what do you want to say and what do you want to do and do you want to write a letter and what do you want me to tell her because the representative is the one who does all the communicating and reaches out to the other person to say, "Hey, this is happening. It's your choice if you want to meet your birth mother. It's your choice if you want to do this stuff." And she prepped me for that too. Like she's like, "Okay, I'm going to reach out, but you have to know that it might be a dead end. We might not find her or she might not want to meet you." So they try to prepare you for those kinds of things. So I found out that my birth daughter did want to meet me and that we were going to communicate and then this is just I mean, it's just crazy. In this whole process and when I got to start communicating with my birth daughter, it turns out that she was looking for me
Oh.
at the same time using the same person. So this her name was Cindy. Cindy was navigating the two of us meeting each other, knowing we both wanted to meet at the same time, and having placed us, back way back when she was a baby too. Like this was just meant to be. Like
Mhm.
this was just a story that was just meant to be. So yeah. So I met my birth daughter, and well, and I call her my birth daughter, even though actually have two birth daughters. And it's so funny too because Milanda's quick to point out, she's like, Mom, I'm your birth daughter too. I'm like, yes, yes, you are. I guess that's
Yeah.
absolutely true.
Did, your second daughter, we'll say second daughter, younger
Yeah,
daughter,
second daughter.
was she aware her whole life that she had another sibling? Like, were you open with her about that? Or
Yeah, no. No, and actually, I wasn't even open with my husband that I met in pharmacy school because, I had since divorced the first gentleman and went back to school as a single mom and then met, my current husband. And I actually hadn't told him either because there really wasn't a reason to bring it up. Like if there it was just a part of my past and we talked there's lots of things we talked about, but I don't know, I just never brought it up and didn't think I was gonna go any further with it. But, when I got the itch to find her, I kinda started the process to see how far I'd get, and once it started to look like it was really moving forward and I needed to prepare my family, I told my husband first and said, "Hey, I have a story for you." And then just kinda told him, "Hey, this is the situation. This is what is currently happening, and this is what I need to tell." second daughter, because my husband, current husband, had actually previously adopted my second daughter. So there's that part of adoption as
Yeah,
well. Point 3, right?
someone needs
But
to make a movie.
yeah, I would love that. I mean, it really like, how many other people have this type of situation? And it's not like I lived my life for this kind of thing to happen. It's
Right.
just, it is weird that all 3 of these things really, really happened in my life. So, but anyway, so no, then I had to tell my second daughter. So my second daughter knew that I was married and to the man who was her birth father, her father, and that we were divorced and I was a single mom, when I went to school, and she was very comfortable. I was very open about all of that stuff. And I never trashed my ex or his family because I didn't want her to grow up thinking that she was, part of something bad, right?
Right, right.
So, yeah, we were very open and very about my first husband as her father and his family and that kind of thing. And so when I realized it was time to let her know that we have a little more history with her birth father, I sat her down on the couch. I still had all of the pictures and documentation from when my first daughter was born. And I started out by going through my wedding album to her birth father and talking about that and saying, this was your dad and we've talked about him. And I said, and then I just kind of pulled out the envelope that had all of the information about my first daughter and just said, "Well, you actually have a sister too." And then kind of started telling her about that. Ooh, just getting a little
I
emotional. Like, don't
Yeah,
show
yeah.
this part of me crying, okay?
No,
But
I'm sure I'll cry at some point too, because I like, it
yeah,
is just a very touching
yeah.
story.
Well, yeah, and so, yeah, so she was just shocked and didn't know how to even, act or react. She was just, I think, so blown away that she actually had a sister and a full blood sister too,
Yeah.
like, which is also really kind of an unusual thing maybe. But she was really excited. And actually, I actually did this. I planned a lot of stuff because I wanted to make sure everything was in place before I told her. This was probably actually maybe a month or so before we were actually gonna meet in September of 2018. So, I kind of made sure I had all of the pieces in place and it was gonna work out before I told my husband and my second daughter that all this was gonna be happening. So, yeah, so it was really an exciting time. 2018 was a very exciting time.
And do you
Yeah,
think, I mean, I know when you were adopted, it wasn't an open adoption, and it sounds like you didn't do an open adoption with your daughter, but looking back,
that's true, yeah.
do you kinda wish you would've, or do you think you could've
Well,
handled it, or you know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Actually, I take that back a little bit. It wasn't a sealed adoption necessarily, but it was kind of, like, I didn't know their last names or where they were from, and they didn't know our last names as far as I knew, and where we were from or anything like that. But we were able to, like, I could write letters to them, send it to Lutheran Social Services, and then they would forward it on. So maybe for, like, the first couple of years, I did that and, sent some letters and some little gifts and stuff like that. But honestly, like, I just kind of let it drop off. I was, married then to my first husband, and we were moving around the country because he was in the military, and we moved every 10 months, and then, life just kinda happens and things get busy, and then when we lived in San Diego, we were there for a few years, and that's when I mean, honestly, I was like, "Okay, I need to have a baby." And so that's really kind of a funny story for another time too, but anyway, so I got pregnant with my second daughter and then immediately got divorced, and that's a whole other story too.
which is also a pretty good story. I've heard parts of
It's a
that
pretty
story.
good story, yeah, we'll do part 2 to talk about that because I think a lot of people could probably actually relate to that kinda situation as well.
Yeah, but anyway.
So, I digress. But yeah, so it wasn't necessarily a sealed adoption. It just wasn't 100% open. Like we didn't have visitation or stuff like that. Like I do have
Mhm.
a friend who adopted a daughter that was open, and they've met, had met and that kind of thing as the daughter was growing up, the birth family and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, maybe we could have, but we just didn't. And I just kind
Yeah,
of
yeah.
lived my life.
So you met, and then I'm assuming it went well? I mean, how old were the both daughters when
Yeah.
all this happened?
Let's see. I gotta do a quick little bit of math here.
Did you meet her first and then bring the sister in, or did you just go all
No,
in, or
we all went. We all she was 22 and my second daughter was 14.
okay.
So yeah, my husband and my second daughter drove to Lutheran Social Services where we were going to meet my birth daughter, my first daughter, and her family, her adoptive family was also gonna be there.
Oh,
They
okay.
were coming later. And so, because it's a few hours away, and so we all just, and they, they remember me and I remembered them. And it was really special too because, I studied French in college the first time around, and the adoptive father, his ethnicity is, he's part got French history in him and he spoke a little French. And so they modified her first name and kept her middle name because her middle
Oh.
name was French. Yeah. And that was a really special part, like, too, of keeping that. And he was also former military, and my husband or my boyfriend at the time was, going to go into the military. So there were a lot of connections and things. So when we met in 2018, I met my birth daughter first, and we, just got to know each other and hugged and talked and that kind of thing. And then after that, then we brought in my family, my husband and my second daughter, talked for a while, a couple few hours, and then later, a few hours later, my birth daughter's adoptive family, they all came to Lutheran Social Services, and so we all got together, and we all went out to eat. But it was everybody. It was, and at that point too, like, my birth daughter in the adoptive family had that older sister who was also adopted, and she had a family already. So it just was like this growing family.
Mhm.
Everybody was had been living their lives over the last 20 years, and
And it all sounds like best case scenario, like,
yeah, yeah.
because I mean,
I think it really was, yeah.
yeah, that's cool. I like that. And then I know you're originally from this area. You did move around a lot,
Mhm.
but Sioux Falls-ish area. Was she always nearby or did they move or like
They were just in North Dakota.
okay.
I had forgotten, like, because all this took place in North Dakota, and I had kind of forgotten that they were so close, and she moved around a little bit here and there too, she's in the military too, so,
Mhm.
yeah, so it was, I mean, relatively speaking, yeah, it was a South Dakota, North Dakota
Right.
proximity, so.
And do you still talk now? Like, are you guys still in contact? Yeah.
Yeah, actually, so we're really close. They've visited our home, and my mom got to meet her, and that was really, really special. I've reunited with her and her family. They've stayed at our place for the holidays. My second daughter, they're full sisters. My second daughter was actually a bridesmaid in her wedding, and we were invited to the wedding. I know. Like, it's such a great thing, It's
Yeah.
such a
Like, I got
beautiful thing.
goosebumps. I was like, "Oh."
Yeah, yeah, it's so beautiful, and it's so funny too because, like, because it's happened to me and I've lived it through this whole period of time and I've gotten used to each part of the story, I need to learn how to tell the story with more, like, better, like, more suspense or pause or, climactic moments or something because, like, to me, it's so normal, but to other people hearing it, I'm sure it is just, like, a crazy, wild story, and I really thank you for this opportunity too, seriously, because it's fun to
No,
tell,
I would
and it is unique.
yeah. And again, I think in some ways it is best case scenario, and by no means is every adoption story. We get that, like, it can be, and I'm not adopted, but I do think even how do I want to say this? None of us leave our parents unscathed. They try their best, but we all have
It's
issues,
true. No, it's so true, it's so true. I
Sorry.
always say I wish that I were older when my parents were younger, and really, it's just that I wish I know what we always say, "I wish I could go back knowing what I know now, go back to in time and change things a little bit, ask more questions," because yeah, we're all gonna have trauma. My daughter will be the first person to tell you that she's probably gonna have some trauma from me too, right? Like, it's just gonna
It's
happen. We're all living our first lives, and we're
yeah,
doing the best
yeah.
we can, right?
And I one of my favorite quotes, it's paraphrase, but Maya Angelou when she says, like, "We do our best until we know better, and when we know better, we do better." And I think,
Yes,
like,
yes, right.
honestly, the first time I read that as, like, a 20-something, I all of a
Mhm.
sudden, like, had all this grace for my parents. I don't know why. Like, you know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
so weird how certain things
yeah,
just hit you at the right time or whatever, but
yeah,
even
right.
now I'm starting to cry a little bit. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. Well, hon, but it's so true, like, and I will tell you that I've been going through, like, my mom passed away last year, and And I'm a little sad that I didn't share all this story with her, but at the time, it just wasn't right, right? And
Mhm.
I believe in heaven, and I know
Yeah.
she's reunited with my dad, and she's seeing all this and just loving it, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But as I'm going through the house and finding all of these things, it gives me a different view of my parents because it's paperwork that they've kept for decades upon decades, like 50, 60 years. They had all of our hospital bills from when all 4 of us were born. Like,
Oh, wow.
all 3 of my brothers and myself, and we never talked about that stuff. Like,
Mhm.
what I would advise, like, every piece of advice that I give is based on experience that I've had and things that I wish I could change. And that's why I always wanna tell people, my story or what I experienced because maybe you're not going through it now, maybe you are, but maybe if I give you my perspective on what I wish I could have changed and what I wish I would have done differently, maybe you
Mhm.
can do that now and you won't have the
Yeah.
same regrets that I have.
Yeah.
Like find stuff out, talk to your parents, keep those lines of communications open and say their names. Like, we never really talked about my dad as much as I wanted to when he passed away. I wish we would have said his name more or even their first son who had died, like,
Mhm.
or even, I don't know, the family trauma, like, I don't know, it's
Yeah.
hard.
Well,
It's
and
hard.
that's even, like, with your adoptive parents, and I know we've talked about issues
Mhm.
with our moms and body issues and
Yes,
all that, like,
right,
we've
right.
talked about some
All the
of
good
that.
stuff, right?
Yeah, and so but and again, like me saying everybody's parents did their best, and by no means did I have a bad childhood, I'm just
Yeah.
there's always things that you kinda think about, whatever.
Right, right. Yeah.
But knowing like you said, knowing more of their story now, like, they had a son that died, like, that how do you combat like, that changes them forever, like,
Yeah.
and then to still raise other kids and not be like, I don't know how they weren't terrified every day that another kid was gonna pass away or something, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I think it would be really hard to go on not like, they coulda really just all of a sudden been, like, helicopter parents and, like, "You
Yeah.
can't go anywhere," or
Yeah.
like, you know what I mean? Like, I could
Yeah.
see that changing in
Right.
somebody's, like
And I wonder if it's because of the way he passed. When we grew up on the farm, our parents, I mean, they let us run everywhere. I mean, they would when dusk happened, they'd honk the horn and because they couldn't yell loud enough to figure out where we were or find us. We are like, "Oh, the horn is honking. It's time to go back for supper." I mean, and I mean, I tell you what, I fell down barn steps, almost cut my nose off. I had a dog bite my face. I ran into like stuff and oh my god. Like my parents had no fear that anything bad was going to happen to us. And I mean, it's crazy. Like, there's no way I would let my daughter do the things that, that my parents let me do.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's
I
so
was
funny.
I didn't grow up on a farm, but I grew up out in the country, and I remember, like, stepping on rusty nails, like, getting
Yeah.
tetanus shot.
Yeah. This is so funny. We had horses and we had one horse that was the mama horse didn't want to take care of it. And so I
Oh.
spent the summer, we had a fenced in yard. And so we let that horse be in our yard and we fed that, the little foal and whatnot until we were able to sell him. But I spent the summer on crutches, not because I had to, but because I wanted to have 4 legs and play with the horse. So, like, we just did everything on the farm, and, like, and my parents were just like, "Whatever, that's mine. You just do you, girl." But it's so funny. Yeah. But I think it's because, like, it was just an inherent health issue with their first
True,
child that they
true.
they didn't
Yeah.
have any control over. I think it just I don't know, my parents were so happy together. My mom had experienced some really significant trauma, and my dad was her rock, and they just had a wonderful, wonderful 50 years.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Isn't it weird
but
when you realize your parents are also people? Like like
yeah, yeah, and that's the bad thing, like, I was my mom's caregiver for 15 years, and it was really challenging sometimes because I didn't have anyone looking over my shoulder or giving me that advice or telling me to step back and have a different perspective because mother-daughter relationships are so challenging sometimes. It's a different dynamic, right?
it
And my
really
older
is.
brother my older brother would tell you stories of me calling him and crying and be like, "I don't know what to do, you have to help my
Mhm.
mom, I don't know how to do this, you gotta step in."
Yeah.
But
I
but
for
they but
sure.
they were great, and I think that really helped me to be a good mom and helped me navigate this whole adoptive process because it wasn't bitter or angry or, it was just me with curiosity.
Mhm.
It wasn't that anything wasn't good enough, it was just me being curious, which I
Yeah.
think everyone would be.
Real quick,
Mhm.
related but different, so I watch Jersey Shore, right?
Okay. Okay.
And Snooki's adopted, and on the last
Oh, okay.
season, she recently decided to find out about her family, and she loves her parents, but for her, she was an only child, so she just always wanted to know if she had siblings
Mm.
because
Yeah.
she was technically an only child, and her
Yeah.
family is from Chile, so
Okay.
and so they did birth family, like, doesn't know she's Snooki or whatever.
Hmm.
I mean, they will
Mhm.
eventually, but on the
Yeah,
show,
yeah,
they showed
yeah.
them having just, like, a phone call, and they had to have an interpreter because they speak
Oh,
Spanish, and
wow.
yeah,
Okay,
and
yeah.
it was so, yeah, so far, at least on the show, they haven't really seen each other. Like, she's seen a couple pictures and things of her, and she did
Mhm,
turn out to have other siblings and stuff, which she was, but it was really
mhm.
nice too because her adoptive parents were right there for the phone call, like, they saw how much, like, it was a really moving moment, actually.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Um, and I'm like, "Why am I crying at Jersey Shore?" Like, but
It is.
it's a similar-ish story, I guess,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. No, it is. It is. It's a very moving. Honestly, I think anytime you hear an adoption story where they're reunited, it's just and it's a good experience, like it is, it's just a crazy piece of your life. Because I grew up, not knowing where I came from or who I looked like or what my ethnicity was. I mean, I'm my daughter, my second daughter here, she's dark like I am, and I got this term from her, but I feel like we're racially ambiguous. 'Cause, I've got the dark hair and olive skin, and my second daughter is darker than I am, and I always wondered, like, where did that come from? So
So you where did it come from? Nice segue, let's go.
right? Like, this is perfect, this is perfect. So, when I started the search for my birth daughter, that actually is what motivated me now we're coming back to, like, 20 minutes later, the
Yeah.
question you asked, why I decided to start searching for my parents. Well, that I was motivated by finding my birth daughter to actually really dig into now finding my birth parents. And so I went that was kind of a little journey as well because I had to petition the courthouse to unseal the records. And it's just a small town, small courthouse, and I had to write, like, 3 letters. The clerk was on my side, and she's like, "I've put it before the judge, I don't know why he's not doing it." It said he just, and then she talked with him, and he's like, "Well, a lot of times what happens is there's bad feelings or you find out information you don't wanna find out." And my first thought was, "Is he my birth father? Does he not wanna unseal these records because he's my birth father?"
Plot twist.
Yeah, plot twist, right? So, but no, but he finally did. I said, "Listen, I'm an old lady here. I'm not in my 20s, and it's
I'm
time
prepared
to
to
unseal
if
those
it
records."
yeah, like, and on again, a much smaller level, I did one of those DNA things to find out all
Yeah,
my
yeah,
heritage and stuff, and
yeah,
I'm paraphrasing again, but one of the boxes you have to check is, like, "This could bring up a lot of family crap. Are you sure you can handle stuff if it" what, and I was like,
yeah,
"Yeah."
yeah, yeah. Hopefully, like, that's what I'm hoping for.
But, yeah, I get what he's saying, but at the same time, you're like, I've been through, like, and with your perspective, especially, like you said, having adoption in all these ways in your life, you're like, I am fully aware of what is this entails.
Yeah.
Like, let's just do it,
Yes,
So,
exactly. So I got a bunch of information from my records. I found out my birth mother's name and I found like some notes from Lutheran Social Services that kind of talked about the time, period during that time for my birth mother and how challenging it must have been for her. There was not a lot of information about my birth father. I kind of got the feeling that it wasn't maybe a great or permanent relationship, But there's a lot of history that I found out about my birth family and it was really beautiful for me to kind of read into this and just see what other what she must have been going through and I won't get into that right now, but it just had to be really challenging and really difficult for her. So they placed me into adoption, and when I started searching, once I had the names and birthdays and a little more information about where they were from and that kind of thing, I hopped onto some like search websites and found a good amount of information. Like, because a lot of people search websites will tell you like other family members and stuff like that. You got Facebook and all this social media and stuff. So it's a lot easier, I think, to find people. So I started kind of gathering information and taking notes on who I thought might be members of my birth family and where they might be. And I had already lived in Sioux Falls for, 5, 6 years, 5, 6, 7 years. And
6, 7. Sorry.
I know. Stop.
I don't know why I even did that.
Oh my
Forget I
gosh,
did
that's
that.
so
Go on.
funny. Forget it, yeah, right. But I actually found out some names and went on to these search websites, went on to Facebook, certainly. I actually found my birth aunt who's very close with her sister, my birth mother. And saw her profile on Facebook. And so sometimes you can see people's friends and sometimes you can't, but she had her friends list public. And I noticed somehow that some of her friends had mutual friends of mine. So she didn't have mutual friends, but her friends on her friends list had mutual friends of mine.
But that's crazy, like 6 degrees of
Mhm.
Kevin Bacon. You
Seriously, right?
Yeah.
And to make it even more interesting, one of the people on her friends list was the mother of one of my pharmacy classmates. So I didn't know like how this family was. So like I contacted my pharmacy classmate. I'm like, hey, listen, your mom is friends with this person who actually is my birth aunt. Then I had to tell him the whole story. Like, cause he didn't know any of it. And I'm like, okay, this
Yeah.
is why I'm calling you. But we
Yeah,
were
yeah, yeah.
close in pharmacy school, so it was fine. It was really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah.
So I told him a little bit of the story and what I was searching for. And I said, listen, I need your mom to do some intel or you to do some intel. And I need you to not make this known that this is what's happening. So he did. He was able to act casually bring it up with his mom. Hey, do you remember this person? La la la, whatever, whatever. And his mom said, oh, she's the nicest person you'll ever meet. She's just wonderful. And I'm like, phew, good. So I actually was able to find her phone number because you can do phone number searches and people searches. And I could not find my birth mother's information anywhere, and it actually turns out she's not on social media, she just is, like, phone calls and letters. She doesn't
Yeah.
text or anything like that, but I actually called my birth aunt first, and that's a crazy call to have to make. Like, "Hi,
I can only imagine.
you don't know me, but, this is who I am." And I just said, "Hey, listen, you don't know who me, but my name is Jenifer, and I've been doing a search for my birth family, and I just want you to know that I think that your sister is my birth mom." And there was just some silence, right? And then she, kinda took in some deep breaths and was like, oh, she was like she actually is a lot like me. She's very, excited and boisterous and reactive and happy, and, she's like, "Oh," she was so happy to hear from me. She's like, "It's like a piece of our life that has been missing is back now." So that was really because I didn't know that they felt that way. Like, I
Yeah.
just kind of thought I was kind of an accident, and they couldn't care for me, but they wanted me to be cared for, and they did this beautiful thing for me and this very unselfish thing to do for to give, oh gosh, here I'm gonna start crying now. But to give who you are to another family to raise and to care for and to be responsible for. Like that's such a huge gift for that family. It
Mhm.
was a huge gift for my family. Such a gift for the child too. And I think honestly too, that is exactly what I drew upon when I placed my birth daughter into adoption. That kind of just beautiful, selfless gift is really what I the strength that I drew from and what my birth mother must have gone through to be able to do the same thing for somebody else and for another family. So yeah, that was really really wonderful and it was really wonderful to reconnect with her. And she gave me my birth mother's information and then I kind of sat on it for a while. And it was kind of awkward because I didn't necessarily want my birth mother to tell or my birth aunt to tell my birth mother that we talked yet, because I kind of felt like, well, I think my birth mother might want to share that information when she's ready with her
Mhm.
family. So I didn't want to keep secrets either, though. So
Yeah.
when I did finally call my birth mother, kind of, the same thing, like, I think this is who I am, and I think you're my birth mom. She's very quiet. She's very quiet and very reserved. And it's kind of funny that she's a little bit of the opposite, I think, of her sister. But, she's the one who experienced it, right?
Yeah,
She's the one
yeah.
who experienced that, what might have been traumatic at the time. And so I did tell her that the first person I'd spoken with was her sister because I wanted to be upfront and open. I didn't want any secrets and I wanted her to know that in order to find her, that's who I came across
Mhm.
first and that's how I got her information. And I said, I said I don't know if your sister will tell you that she talked with me, I said, "She may want you to tell her first because it's your story to share, and you can tell her when you're ready." And I I don't know how that whole thing went. It's
Yeah,
kind of
yeah,
up to
yeah.
them, but I didn't want there to be secrets, so
I
but
feel like
anyway.
if I was the sister, like let's say my brother gave someone up for adoption and they called me first,
Mhm,
I could
mhm.
not keep I would have called him immediately. Like I would have such a
Yeah,
hard
yeah.
time
Well,
sitting
and
on
I
it.
and I did, and
I
the
get that you're like, I want to be the one to it should come from
yes,
me or
and
yeah.
my auntie and I talked about that too. Like, I kinda said, "Well, do you wanna tell her?" And then I was like, "Well, maybe I should call her and tell her." Yeah. So we kinda decided that maybe that's what we'd do. And that was in, my goodness, 2020 when I first made contact. So that was a tough time during COVID. But yeah, but anyway, so then, yeah, I contacted my birth mother, and I'm really slow at things too. It was probably a year before we met then, but my second daughter and I met my birth mother here in Sioux Falls, and, just talked with her and chatted and got to know each other, and, you know, um I haven't really delved into asking her more about what her time was like, and I don't know if I will or if she'd feel comfortable with that, or maybe she's just wants to put that in the past
Mhm.
and move forward knowing us and our family. But since that time, honestly, we've met on a few occasions. I've met my she's got two sons, so I've met my half brothers. We
You
all
just
got
have all
together in Sioux
kinds of
Falls.
brothers, don't you? Like just
I'm not even done. I am not even done
that's true.
yet.
We haven't even gotten to your dad yet.
We haven't even gotten my dad's side of the family. I don't know. Are people even still listening? I don't
Yes,
know.
I'm all in.
But I met my two half brothers. I met one of my half brothers' families, his wife and daughter, my birth aunt, my birth mother, my second daughter. Like, we all met, and it's just been great. Like, we talk on the phone once in a while and exchange texts once in a while, and we're connected on Facebook. And actually, my second daughter, she is performing a concert coming up in December here in a couple of weeks, and my whole birth family is going to go, and
Oh, I
even
love
a
that.
couple of my birth aunts, like, her family is coming as well, so I'll get to meet people I haven't met yet, and they're all gonna see my daughter sing, and
I love
it's
that.
their granddaughter, their niece, their cousin, it's
Yeah, that's cool.
yeah.
It's funny you say, like, people you haven't met yet. I
Mhm.
feel like you have a better excuse because you were adopted, but my mom was the youngest of 10, like, I have cousins I've never met, like, in Ohio and stuff, like, I
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it is
yeah,
just again, family dynamics, man.
yeah. It is,
But
and I can't imagine, like, it must be hard, like, I know families who've got huge amounts of people, in their families, and it must be hard to get everybody together and know everybody. I mean, our family's always been kinda small. I mean, we've had a lot of
yeah,
great aunts and uncles and stuff like that, but yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, interesting.
So, did your birth mom kinda clue you into who your dad was, or did you
Mm-mm.
find out about him more on your
Mhm.
own?
Yep, yep. So I haven't really asked questions of my birth mother, about my birth father because kinda during this whole time too, I've been trying to find out information about my birth father, and his information I found out from going through Ancestry DNA. I found out a ton of information on Ancestry DNA, and that's actually what got me also connected to my birth mother and her family. I have a cute story, actually. It's kinda cute, kinda sad too, but so my birth mother's family is their ancestry DNA profiles are managed by my birth mother's granddaughter. So she would be my niece. And every once in a while, she said that they would print off information or show my birth mom, the grandma, the matriarch, information from Ancestry DNA just to see what other new relatives have popped on. And it sounds like they were telling me that one day they saw me pop up as a close match. Super close match, right? Like mother daughter type match. And when they printed it off and showed her, "Hey, who's this?" She got held the paper close. She got real quiet, didn't say anything, and then I guess never asked to look at Ancestry DNA again.
But at least she's still,
I
like
know, right? Like, kinda sad, like, maybe it brought up some really hard times for her, but maybe, like, deep down inside too, she was
she
like,
was just happy to know who
that
you
I'm
were, that
alive and
yeah,
well, and
yeah,
I feel like that's what they'd said too, like, she was just like when we talked about it later, but they are the ones who told me that story, and so that was and they told it all together, right? So it wasn't a secret story, but
yeah,
yeah, I think that it was like, I can't imagine what that would feel like.
yeah,
I mean, I know what it felt like when I found them and when I matched as a close match with them. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, holy crap.
yeah.
This is happening."
That's
So
that
for
box
my
that like I said, with that box
yeah,
you check, that's what they're talking
yep.
about right there.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. What are we gonna find out today, friends? So, but that's how I got to meet members of my birth father's family. So my birth father, whenever I would see someone who was a close match, like second cousin, first cousin, whatever, that kind of thing, I would reach out to them on Ancestry, provide them my background, and say, "This is my search, and this is what I know and what I don't know, and I'm wondering if you'd be willing to share information." And this was probably 2019, 2020, probably 1920 time frame, maybe 2021. And I got in touch with someone who's and I wrote all this down, like, I've got all of these notes and stuff, but I just can't remember right now what the exact relationship was. It was my birth father is his, like, great great uncle or something like that. His My birth father's sister is his great aunt. So it's kind of a skewed relationship, like, it's kind
Mhm.
of out, out there, but anyway, but he provided me with a ton of information, which was really nice to know. Like, my birth father actually passed away in his 60s, but that at the time was maybe, like, 10 years prior. So I'm
Mm.
thinking it was right around 2008 timeframe that he had passed away. So will never get to meet him, which is kind of sad, but it was kind of funny because when I got to know this my second cousin or whoever he is to me, he
Right.
said that that family is really tight-lipped about their brother, the uncle, or whatever relationship my birth father is to them. Again, I think it is because he's a little bit of a scoundrel, and maybe the family was like, "Dude, you got to get a grip." But he also went by a few different names. So I've since found out like a couple different first names and last names. So it's really hard to like pinpoint who he is or where he was. From what I found out is that I had he was married to and he's oh, I should say he's East Indian. Like that's where I get my coloring and my
Yeah, yeah.
daughter's too. Like she's even
That was
darker than
gonna
I
be
am.
my question eventually is like, "So who do you look like?" Because that was like
Yeah. Well, I honestly I kind of look like my birth mom, I think. I think I look like my birth mom. But my coloring is more my birth father, and he is East Indian by way of Guyana, South America, and I've met other Guyanan Indians recently too, which is really interesting, like, people that I've told the story to that have East Indian heritage, they're like, "Oh my gosh, my family's from Guyana too," and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, we should get together more often."
Yeah.
It is actually a culture that I'd like to get more in touch
Right,
with
yeah,
because 'cause I'm
yeah.
50%, right? And I just feel like I need to connect with people if they'd be willing to accept me in that part of my history or ethnic heritage into their culture. I'd love to learn more about it.
Mhm.
But at any rate, so he was married to a white family, a white woman who was the sheriff's daughter in Minnesota nearby because there was a culture in Minnesota of Guyanan East Indians, I guess, Guyanan Indians. And married to this woman, and I guess it was really a time where, racial tensions were high in the 60s and stuff like that. And so it was kind of I think that family was also when it was very tight-lipped. I happened to talk to my niece, the young girl who would have been my niece. We connected on Ancestry DNA, and she said they were very tight-lipped and a lot of secrets went to the grave.
Yeah.
But her mom, I found out, was my half sister. So I found my half sister, who had a really tough time growing up, though, because she was, biracial, like interracial. She was half 50% white and 50% East Indian. And that's kind of how I am. But I've seen pictures of her, and she's very much got the East Indian features.
Mhm.
And I think I have more Norwegian features. But
Those Viking DNA, like,
the
overrun.
Yeah, the Viking DNA is strong, right? Strong. It is really funny too how I've kind of always just associated as a white girl. Like I don't think people look at me necessarily and think anything unusual,
Yeah. But
but
that's
I did
also,
have a
I think, a good lesson, and we shouldn't assume things because even I'll be
Mhm.
guilty. I would have assumed that you were like, you're white passing, I would say for
Yeah,
sure,
yeah.
or even, like,
Well, and
one
that's
of my
racially ambiguous, right? Like that's I mean, because
yes,
when I
yeah,
lived in Texas, people thought I was Hispanic. And when I grew up in, at the little corner of the state that I grew up in, a lot of people thought I was native. So it just, I mean, and I used to get a lot darker. I'd get really dark when I was young. I'm
yeah, yeah,
more fair skinned
especially in the
now,
summer,
but
I'm sure, and stuff like that, yeah.
hugely brown, super brown. Yeah. And Milana too. Very,
Yeah.
very brown.
Like, my friend Heather, she's, like well, she's technically, like, 1/16th Japanese or something,
And
Okay.
once I knew it, I was like, "Oh, I do see it," but I
Oh,
didn't
how funny.
assume it right
Yeah,
away, but I think
yeah.
that's good. You shouldn't assume things, like, just
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
But
Well,
anyway,
and I had a lady in Macy's at the cosmetics counter wonder what my nationality was, and I love that question. I really do. I love that question because I
when
wanna
it's
tell people
asked
my
in a
story.
nice way of actual
Yeah,
curiosity, because
yeah,
some people
exactly.
ask it in a way that's like,
Right,
"Why?"
and that's fine, I don't mind. I mean, like, if you're curious, that's fine, we'll talk about it. Let's talk
Yeah,
about it. But she's like, "Oh," she wondered, and she said, "'Cause, we have similar features, and she's Persian." And I'm like, "Oh, that's so cool. Thank you for giving
yeah.
me that opportunity." But anyway, so she had some identity crisis struggles growing up, and I actually never got to meet with her or talk with her, but I do still chat with her daughter, my niece. She actually passed away unexpectedly a few years ago, so I never got a chance but I feel bad. I hope that she has the answers that she
Mhm.
was always looking for. I always feel like people do. I believe that people will all get all the answers that they ever want when they pass. But
I
anyway,
kinda believe that too. I like to think that as well.
yeah, yeah. But then just recently, actually, in about a year ago, I got a really close match on Ancestry DNA that could be like a sister. And I'm like, holy crap, this is great. I found like a new close relative. So I actually talked with her on Ancestry DNA and we started exchanging texts and then we set up a phone call and I got so much information about her. And this is where it gets really juicy.
Get your
So
popcorn.
this is crazy too. This is where I know my birth father was a scoundrel. So when I was born, my birth father was this is how I'm putting it together. This is how I see it. When I was born, my birth father was married to a family and had a pregnant wife and must have had an affair with my birth mother. So okay, so I found out that from the way I'm putting the pieces of the puzzle together, that my birth father was married and had a pregnant wife and had an affair with my birth mother who was very young and she was legal age but she was very young and he was quite a bit older than her. I don't know anything about their relationship or what came to pass or if he left or what happened, but my half sister who my birth father had while he was having an affair with my birth mother, she was born in June and I was born in November. And so that just kind of tells me that he was married, had an affair, and then I was born and my birth mother couldn't care for me or provide for me, so she gave me up for adoption, released me into adoption. And then a decade later, whatever my birth father went through, he moved to Barbados, and that's where he started having another family. So he must have left his first family. He did. He left his first family, disappeared. My niece was telling me that my birth niece was telling me she doesn't know because they're very tight-lipped. So yeah, so he left that family and then started another family in Barbados where he was married and was having four girls with his wife. Also was having other children with another woman. So it's like he had four families, like a decade apart. He had two families, and I'm one of those families that he had. And then a decade later, he was married and had like two more families in Barbados. And this was really awkward for those families, I'm sure, because my half sister that I connected with, who was the close match on Ancestry, she was telling me all this information. Barbados is a really small island, and she and her brother went to the same school as the four daughters that my birth father also had. And it was just a really challenging thing for them, I'm sure, because I'm sure that wife was like really mad, first of all, at her husband, my birth father, for doing all this stuff on the side. And the half sister, like her poor mom and family, is just being strung along by this guy, having more kids, and who knows what he's telling either of these families, right? Well, I guess his demise came not at the hands of any of his family members or
Shocking.
wives, but actually, it sounds like he had like triple or quadruple bypass surgery in Canada somehow for some reason in like the 2007 to 2010 time frame and passed away on the recovery table, it sounds like.
Oh.
So I think that he is maybe buried in Canada from what my half sister that I'm connected with has told me. And his family that he had in Barbados that he was married to and the four daughters, like it sounds like they might be in Canada as well. I am just dying for them to do ancestry DNA, but I kind of feel like maybe they won't because of their mom and the situation and the pain that it caused. And like I get that because I didn't tell my mom, my adopted mom, I didn't tell her I was doing any of this birth family search because I didn't want it to cause her pain, you know. But I am hoping that they'll get on ancestry DNA. I would love to meet them. So what I've found out is I've got two half brothers and a half sister that passed and a half sister I've been communicating with and her brother and then 4 other half sisters. I've got 9 half siblings. So
That's
I'm going from a girl who was like 2 brothers, always wanted a sister, you know, to having 9 half siblings. But it's kind of crazy. Like
yeah.
it's absolutely insane. And I really wish I could get to know my sisters more. The one sister actually I did meet. We went to New York in March this year and I got to meet her and spend time with her, and the friends I went to New York with were just great. They were so amazing. They're like, "Yes, we will absolutely come with you to meet your half sister and talk with her and make time in our schedule to make this happen for you." And I was like so thankful. And because my friends are awesome. They're just so great. But yeah, that was really wonderful to meet her. Really wonderful. I
Yeah,
should
that's
text her. I'm really bad about communicating.
I'd say you're doing an okay job.
It's a lot to keep track of.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and, like, I just families and like I said, my mom's the youngest of 10. I don't see many of those cousins or those aunts and uncles that often, and a lot of them are in the, like, Sioux City, Omaha, like, not that far away, you know? So, I mean, it's families are interesting.
Yeah. Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you and maybe tell me to shut up if this is, like, too invasive or something, but do you ever
Nah, we're past that point.
because I think I would think this sometimes. Like, do you ever have what if you weren't adopted? Like, do you ever wonder what could have been, or do you just try to, like, keep
Mhm.
that out of your head?
Yeah. That's a really great question. I think about that once in a while because I think about that once in a while because I also think about what, you know, could I have kept the birth daughter that I gave up and what would have life have been like for her, you know, and all those what ifs. Like that's why I really think there's probably parallel universes out there. You know, if I had kept my birth daughter, would my second daughter even have been born or what would that have done with the relationship or the marriage or would we have gotten married or no? My life would have been very different. My birth father I'm sorry, my birth mother, her dad died when she was like 2 or 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
And so my birth mother and her sister grew up being raised by a single mom, which is so I mean, I was a single mom, you know, like there's just so and my husband now that I met in pharmacy school, he was raised by a single mom. Like, because his dad actually passed away when he was like 3 years old. I gotta tell you, like, there is a musical kinship. There is like this magical field, these forces that happen in our lives that I don't know if they're orchestrated or not, but there's so much like closeness and similarities and so much stuff that just seems too crazy to be mere coincidence, I think, that happens sometimes. So those two daughters were raised by a single mom. And I just think if my birth mother had kept me, it just would have been, yeah, completely different because, you know, I wouldn't have had a dad growing up and it would have been very matriarchal influenced, which is powerful. Honestly, I mean, I think there's a lot of female and women led power in my story too. That's just, I mean, you got to embrace it. My mom
Yeah.
was so strong and my birth mother was so strong and her mother was so strong and you know my birth father's mom or my husband's mom was so strong like all of these women going through all of these challenges that just lesser people would have crumbled and they just fought through so much, you know. And I think that grit is just I think that's just in us whether we experience it because it's a part of our genetics or part of our environment or stories that we learn and take from. It's just, yeah, it would have been very different. I can't say how, but you know, it would have been
And I
very
think that's
different.
very valid that I mean, especially with your birth father, he obviously left a few families. The women being strong thing, it's giving a kid up is not the easy way out, or it is a tough decision
Right.
to be made. And I think in some of
No.
these instances,
Yes.
I don't want to say all men are terrible, but had you had a better partner, or like your birth dad, he obviously left a few families, like women had
Mhm.
to keep going. Like they didn't have the
Yeah.
option to leave so
No.
it is just
Right.
kind of it's interesting. And but I hate all the stuff about like abortion is like women are bad. I'm like, a man can literally have two families at one time and yet you're worried about the woman.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I know, we are on the same side of the spectrum there, and
And this
yeah.
might be too invasive to tell me to shut up, but since I brought up abortion, I don't know if I've ever asked you that. Did that ever cross your mind when you got pregnant the first time, or was it?
I mean, I knew it was an option, like, I mean, I knew it was an option, but, uh, not really. I mean, I can't it's been 20 over, 20 going on 30 years that I've had to think about it. And I mean, there's a lot of things that I remember about the mindset that I was in and what I was thinking and what I would do. I mean, honestly, for the first couple months, I didn't even really realize it because of, irregular cycles and stuff like that. And, you just start the pill and blah, 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 blah. I mean, it's just, people are young and they're stupid and there's not enough good solid education to be had to really let people know, right? Like what happens and how it happens and how it's supposed to happen and what happens yeah, like, there's no education around it. Good thing we're getting rid of more education. But anyway
But no, and no judgment either way. Like I am fully pro-choice.
No,
I don't think
no,
that's
I
an
mean,
easy decision
I knew it was
either.
an option. Yeah,
Yeah.
I knew it was an option, but it's not an option that I wanted to take. Like, it just wasn't. I mean, it wasn't. I mean, I think I thought about it. I mean, I remember thinking about it. I remember thinking, I know it's out there. I know it's an option. I did not have good access to healthcare or medical care because I was on my own and really dumb. Anyway, again, no education, right? Like nobody to point these things out. But I think really I just knew that, I knew I was pregnant and I knew that I was going to have the baby and I knew that I was going to release her into adoption to a family that could take care of her the way I was taken care of. And that is exactly what I remember and what my thought process was. It was very strong and very powerful. I wanted her to be raised by a family who could give her the things that I couldn't in the way that I was raised because I had a great adoptive family experience and I wanted my birth daughter to have that same thing. And
Mhm.
that was very powerful. And
Mhm.
that was, I remember too in the hospital after she was born, I was holding her and I feel kind of bad saying this. Like one of the nurses came in and said, "Oh, we thought we'd heard that maybe you're going to keep your baby." And I said, "No, I can't. I have to I can't take care of her." And I feel kind of bad. Like that's just how I felt though. Like I knew I couldn't take care of her. And I did not feel like I would be able to keep her. And I'd already gone so far with the process of the adoption that I knew it was the right thing to do, right? Like I knew it was the right thing to do because it was the right thing for me at the time. Like my birth mother
Mhm.
had made the right decision for me. And so yes, I mean, you can look back on
Yeah.
stuff and I do know now though that I fully support a woman's choice. I will say that, having my birth daughter reunited and having my second daughter with me as a single mom, like that bond is so powerful and those lives are so beautiful and they're good stories and I wouldn't want my daughters to choose abortion. But did you hear how I said that?
Yeah.
I
They
wouldn't want
chose
them
it.
to
Yeah.
choose abortion, right?
Mhm.
If they did, I would support them in any way that I could, but I mean, life is beautiful. Their lives were beautiful, but not all lives are beautiful.
Mhm. Mhm.
There are, I mean, that's another discussion for another time.
Right.
But really, I think that it's important to have that choice.
You still
Still.
chose adoption. Like I know
Mhm,
it's
mhm,
still a choice no matter what. And
mhm,
and I
mhm,
I I think choosing adoption, you're still also your body's gonna change. You're going through I mean, you still have to go through all of that, and I think that's still a lot to take on that, like, a man can be like, "Yeah, let's give it up for adoption," but he doesn't have to have his whole body
mhm.
change, you know what I mean? Like, it's
Well,
just
and
different.
clearly it's so easy, like with my birth father. And I joke about him being a scoundrel. You kind of have to take things the way they are. But I mean, when you think about the trauma that this man left on so many people and so many lives, because they can.
Mhm.
They don't have any responsibility, right? Again, other conversation for
Yeah.
other time. But it's also something that I have had to deal with as someone whose father, birth father just disappeared. Like, not that I knew that, but you look at these things and how, your birth families were affected
But yeah, it obviously
and and
affected
and
your birth mom and her siblings
and
and her
my
parents
half
and yeah.
sister, yeah, my half sister who passed away, to hear my niece, her daughter tell it, she struggled a lot with what happened. Like that, she struggled a lot. My niece said she doesn't even know if her grandfather ever her grandfather would be my birth dad, ever actually divorced, or if he just left the family behind, and it was so traumatic that his wife, my half sister's mom, never talked about it.
Mhm.
My half
Yeah,
sister
it's
never
tough.
knew anything about like where she came from or what happened or and so my niece was just like her mom really struggled with it. So,
Mhm. 2 things, I don't think you should feel bad for in the hospital saying, "No, I'm not gonna keep her," because I think, you did what was right for you and your daughter. And
yeah,
then
yeah.
I also think I like that all of it sounds like it has been sort of therapeutic or beneficial for everybody you've found to kind of know things turned out like best case scenario, you know? Like, I think in some way you were all meant to find each other this way, and I hope you do find those other half sisters and stuff because
Yeah,
maybe it would
yeah.
be therapeutic and, like, good for them to know that they weren't alone. Like, sure, it sucked what happened, but, like, it happened to all of us too kinda thing or something. I don't
Mhm.
know. Again,
Hmm.
it didn't happen to me, I should shut up, but I just think it
No,
sounds
no. Yeah,
it
you're
sounds
fine.
like it's been beneficial for all the people you have met to be able
Yeah.
to talk about it and,
Yeah,
you know
I would like to think so. I mean, the people that I've connected with, my half sister in New York, who incidentally lives well, she lives just a little bit outside of New York, but yeah, she was great meeting her. Like, we really were so happy to find each other,
Mhm,
so happy, right? And my birth mom and that family, like, I mean, I feel like they think it's a good thing. Like they're coming to, the event in December to the concert and to see, my daughter sing and even with my birth daughter and my first and my second daughters, the close relationship that they have right now, they're so close. In fact, they're in a little group chat with each other and, like, 2 of the other bridesmaids. Like, I'm a little envious, like, I wanna be part of that group chat. I don't wanna be the mom, I wanna be, like, the cool aunt.
I love that
But,
though,
yeah,
like,
but that's just
that's
great, like
I get
and
it, I would yeah.
I think I'm a little envious of my second daughter for having that closeness with my birth daughter that even I don't have because they're so close and they found each other, and they communicate all
Mhm,
the time. I mean, I'm very close with my birth daughter, with both of them. But
yeah,
they're Snapchat and texting and group text and Instagram and all over the place all the
yeah.
time. So
But
they're
I
just
feel
they're
like
they're
that's
close
just
to
the way it is with siblings. Because my brother and
Yeah,
I
for
text and
sure.
stuff way more than I talk
Yep.
to my dad, like, I don't know, it just
Yeah.
is. I don't
Yep. Siblings, yeah. But I'm just thrilled, honestly, that my daughters have found each other. I'm just
Mhm,
thrilled. Yeah.
and
And
I
they look
just
so different. This is the whole thing about if we go back to how I didn't look like my brothers, my 2 daughters really died and they don't look anything alike.
yeah, and they're full.
It's
You said they're
amazing.
f
They're
like
both so beautiful. Like, they're
yeah.
both so beautiful. But it's my first daughter looks like my first husband's side of the family, and my second daughter looks like me.
Yeah, but that just goes to show, like, yeah, families don't always that's
Yeah.
just how it works sometimes,
Yep.
like, you know? I don't even know how to, like, end this necessarily, but I'm just really glad that you were willing to share that, and I like that we cried together a little bit.
It makes me happy that people react. It makes me happy that people have a strong emotional hopefully positive reaction to my story. I mean, I kind of almost feel like that's what I want people to feel because that's how I feel. And I'm an empath and
Yeah.
I feel other things that other people feel, but I also want people to walk in the shoes of others to kind of see, how is, with your identity with because, again, not all adoptive kids have the same experience and maybe do struggle more with identity. I think I just was always like, "Well, I'm adopted. That's fine, whatever,
Yeah.
Like, I think I've just always been kind of casual about it. I haven't been it didn't it was sort of a defining who I was, but I didn't it's a part of who I am, but it wasn't my whole identity,
Yeah.
I am who I am. So yeah, it's thank you for letting me share this
Yeah, I just
story. I
think
do. I
it's
love the story, and I really
yeah.
appreciate you letting me share it.
The other thing I always wonder about with adopted kids, and there's been, like, movies and stuff about it, but did you ever worry when you were dating that, like, what if I'm related to this person and I don't know it?
You know what's funny is that I thought of that, right? Like, I have thought of that because you don't know, and I'm pretty sure that's happened, right? Like, I know that has happened in the world, right?
Yeah.
So, but no, but I do remember, like, when I was young and going through a little bit of a phase of how I'm not really a part of I'm not really a blood relative of the family. That kind of hurt my parents a little bit. And again, it was short lived, but I do remember that my great aunt had some relatives in by marriage, and one of them, as you go down the family tree, was one of my classmates that I kind of had a crush on him. He kind of had a crush on me. It was the third grade. But when I found out that we could be related in that way, which we really weren't because it was all through marriage anyway. And even if I had been a blood relative,
Yeah.
like it still was through marriage, right?
Right.
It's so distant, like that it wouldn't have counted. But I do remember saying, well, it doesn't matter because I'm not related to him anyway, because I'm not related by blood anyway. And I think that kind of just hurt my parents a little bit. It was that phase I was going through. The
Yeah.
one thing I want to say, I guess, that I can leave y'all with is that, and this will totally make me cry. It's totally gonna make me cry.
Yeah.
But and it's a good thing to leave people with because this is the perspective that I had. When my 2nd daughter was born, like, and I got to raise my 2nd daughter, she was the first blood relative I ever knew in my life. Like,
Yeah.
she's the first
You're
blood
gonna make me
relative
cry.
I know, that I ever had in my life, right? So that was so, so profound. So profound.
And they do
Yeah.
say, like, you don't get to choose your family and things like that, but it is
Mhm.
here I'm going to, but it is one of those things where, like, I don't know how to say it. Everyone in my family, I was blood related to, so sometimes you're like, "Oh, you can't choose your family," but, like, for someone like you, being a blood relative does really matter, like but I also know
Yeah.
some people, their birth families were terrible to them, and so they'd rather be closer with the people they choose to be close with,
Yep.
but,
Yep.
that's something I never really you even saying that, I've never really thought of it that way, that
Yeah.
yeah, it is something you take for granted.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's the thing too, like, that's what I want to impart to people also, like, I mean, you can't help the circumstances that are beyond your control, but, you can certainly make your own life out of it and go down your own path and make your own decisions to make things you don't have to be a victim of circumstance, right? You don't
Yeah,
have to be a victim of circumstance.
and I
So,
feel like yeah, like, even after your first marriage, you went back to school, you know, you turned out okay, kid, like, I guess.
Oh, that's
Gosh,
funny.
this was good. Gosh, we are both just 2 little sad sacks over here. They're kinda happy tears, though, because it is
Yeah.
again, it's something we take for granted, and I'm glad you got to like, you got that, like and I
Mhm.
bet it was something you didn't even realize would mean so much to you till it, like, happened, you know?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and, you do a lot of reflecting and you're like, "Yeah, that is how I felt," or, "Think about it this way," or, "Oh my gosh, that happened," or, find out. And the more you find out, the crazier it is. When I started finding out, when I counted 9 half siblings, I'm like, "Holy crap." Yeah, that's crazy. I would love to meet all these people. I don't know. And maybe it's a little bit selfish too. I want them to meet me. I want them to know who I am. And I just want them to know that good came out of, or hope that they can find some good that came out of pain that they might have experienced. Mhm.
I like that. Usually, I haven't done this in a while on Talking with Tasha because I've been doing a lot more of recaps with my friend Trey of just the show Lost. But my old formula was like towards the end, whoever my guest was, because I am sort of a pop culture girly at heart. Is there a TV show, movie, book, something you want to recommend to everybody that you're really into right now, just to lighten the mood and bring it back to like my pop
Yeah.
culture roots?
Oh my goodness. Oh, you should have prepped me with that. No, it doesn't matter. I would have waited till the last minute and not gotten an answer anyway.
Just it can be anything, like anything you're watching right now or
So I don't okay, so I love, like my husband and I watch 2 shows, Only Murders in the Building, which we love, and The Morning Show with Jennifer Aniston and Reese Witherspoon. Like, I
mhm,
just love those 2. I'm not a big TV watcher fan, but we do like those 2 shows, and we
mhm.
catch those. I just read a book, you'll have to help me with the name of it. I'm a part of this amazing book club. It's just the best. The best book club
The Last
ever.
House one or the Berry Pickers?
Yes, The Last House one.
Yeah,
The Last House on the Street.
or on the
Oh, that book
something
was
like that, yeah.
so good.
It was
That book
good.
was so good. So awful and so sad, but so good,
I
like
hated that I was right at the end. I was like, "Why did I
yeah,
have to ugh," you know,
yeah,
like
yeah. Yeah, next book club we'll have to talk about we'll just recap that one for
yeah,
me
that's
since I
fine.
had to miss the last one.
Did you
But
did you
yeah.
start Berry Pickers then or no?
Yeah, I'm done with that one too.
Okay, because
Yeah.
I think I mean, you weren't spoiler alert, you weren't
I
kidnapped or
totally get what you're
stolen,
saying.
but you
Yes,
were,
yes. Yep,
raised yeah,
yep,
I'm sure you
yep.
have some different insights than the rest of us for sure about that,
Yeah,
but
yeah. No, I was that book was okay. It was a little slow moving, but I really did like it because I kind of tried to put into perspective, like, how would she feel and how would that feel when you found out so late and really the circumstances that surrounded it, like, yeah, no, that was good too.
and with
Yep.
that one, I was really again, it was kinda slow, and I listened to that one, and the narrators weren't
Me
great,
too.
but whatever. But
But I think they were authentic. I think
I
they were
d
native. Yeah.
I do t yes, so I give them that credit. But I was gonna be so mad if she didn't get to, like, meet her mom and stuff. Like, you know what I was like, I know it's just a book, but if she doesn't
Hmm.
get to meet her mom, I
Yeah.
or, like,
Spoiler
more for
alert.
the mom because she was so still had those
Hmm.
boots and just, like, always knew her daughter was still I
Yep.
just was like
Yep. Yep. Yep.
but yeah.
And I wasn't really sure where it was gonna go too, because they give a little bit of what you think is foreshadowing, but it kind of misleads you, misdirects you a little bit,
Mhm. Yeah.
So it was yeah, they kept you
Yeah.
kind of guessing,
But I
but
think both of those books deal a little bit with, like, identity,
mhm.
interracial kinda things.
Yeah.
'Cause Last House on the Street, I think is what it was called, was 60s civil rights, black, white
Mhm.
in the
Yep.
South. And then Berry Pickers was indigenous people trying to make their way,
Mhm.
doing odd jobs, trying to keep their family together. When they brought up the Indian schools and stuff, I was like, "No." Like, so but yeah, it's just a lot about identity and where you come from and still wanting to be proud, but
Yeah.
sometimes that and I shouldn't say that pride gets you in trouble because that man did not deserve what happened to him in the last house on the street.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, I mean, this is why we're in book club because we could go on and on about these
Yeah.
things.
Right, right. Yeah.
I'm
No, that was
excited
great.
for book
But
club.
but both very good perspectives, yeah, for something like this. Yep.
I should have a better outro for this. Like, you'd think over the couple years that I've had this podcast, I would be more professional and have a way to end it, but it's more just like, okay, bye.
Thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Talking with Tasha. I want to thank Jenifer Wollman once again for being such a great guest and for being willing to share her story. And once again, I want to thank you for listening. And I am thankful for all the listeners and all the people that still see me in public and say hey, or all the people that follow me on Instagram and leave nice comments. I'm just thankful for using the internet for good instead of evil, basically. Anyway, again, I hope you have a great Thanksgiving and thank you for listening. You can listen to Talkin' with Tasha on Apple, Spotify, Pandora, Amazon, or at talkinwithtasha.com. You can also email me at talkinwithtashapod@gmail.com. You can follow me on all the social medias. You can buy a cameo from me. You can hire me on Fiverr. All of that is linked at talkinwithtasha.com. Also, if you liked what you heard, make sure you rate, review, subscribe, comment, share, do all the things. Help a sister out. I appreciate you so much. Again, happy Turkey Day, gobble gobble, and there's only one thing left to say. Be safe, make good choices, wash your hands, just try to be a good person, stay hydrated, and peace out, Brussels sprout. Bye.